Welcome back. In 2016, the voters of Congressional District 7 broke a long-running trend and voted for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. That critical outcome turned CD7 on Houston's west side into a battleground race, drawing interest and money from across the nation. Democrat Lizzie Fletcher emerged from a talented field of primary opponents to win her party's nomination, and she returns to our hot seat. Welcome back, Lizzie Fletcher.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Okay, you're an attorney and have fought for a woman's right to choose. As you watched the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing and heard the nominee call Roe v. Wade settled law, were you convinced or are you concerned?
Well, I'm concerned, and I think that all supporters of the right to choose, which is the majority of Americans, should be concerned about what we heard from Judge Kavanaugh this week. I listened to your panel earlier, and they're right that the statement that Roe v. Wade is precedent is really meaningless in this context. I think what we saw, we didn't get a good answer. We didn't get a Ruth Bader Ginsburg style answer of what the beliefs were. Instead, what we heard was a reference in another question to abortion-inducing drugs, which means to Judge Kavanaugh that birth control and contraception is abortion-inducing. And I think that knowing that that's where a lot of people want to take this, knowing that Roe v. Wade emerged from a line of cases. 10 years earlier, we had Griswold versus Connecticut saying married couples had the right to use birth control. If we're talking about unraveling the fundamental right of privacy that Roe recognized, then I think we all have a lot to be concerned about.
Hey, look, your opponent, John Culberson, has spent a lot of time talking about the federal funding he helped secure for CD7 in the wake of Harvey. Now, does he deserve credit, or should that funding have become before Harvey to prevent some of the damage?
Well, the funding should have come before Harvey, and the fact is other members of our congressional delegation were asking for it. And John Culberson, who sits on the Appropriations Committee and is in the majority, wasn't advocating for that funding until after Harvey. It shouldn't take a Hurricane Harvey to fund projects that the Army Corps of Engineers has identified and presented to Congress, that Congress has approved but hasn't allocated any money for. And I think that that's really the challenge here. It's not just Harvey, it's flooding. It's the Memorial Day flood, it's the Tax Day flood, and frankly, it's Tropical Storm Allison back in 2001. That was the year that John Culberson took office. I know because I've been his constituent since that time, and I lived through Allison. And we have known in this community that flooding's a problem. Residents who live in the Brays Bayou watershed, residents who flooded less than 24 inches after Harvey or during Harvey, if Project Brays had been completed, their houses might not have flooded. And there's no reason that we couldn't do that project more quickly, except for the fact that the federal government contributions weren't there. And the city had to go out and borrow money to try to speed up the project because we all knew here on the ground that flooding was a problem and that we were going to continue to see waters coming into our homes until we finish Project Brays. So I absolutely think that we need someone who is proactive, not simply reactive, representing us in Congress.
Republicans, including John Culberson, are touting the GOP tax cut. What, if anything, worries you about the $1.5 trillion price tag? And do you feel like it disproportionately favors corporations and the wealthy?
Yeah, I think what concerns me about the increased deficits that we're seeing in this administration and from this Congress, it's fiscally irresponsible. Now, that is what, for so many years, we've understood the Republican platform to be about fiscal responsibility, and we're seeing the opposite out of congressional Republicans and out of this White House. The deficit spending has increased. We are increasing our spending, and we're cutting our revenues. That's just fiscally irresponsible. And you're right, the majority of the benefit of this tax cut goes to corporations and the top 1%. I'm all for tax cuts that are going to bring meaningful relief to the middle class. But what you look at when you look at the projections over time, over the next 10 years, people who have lower incomes are going to be paying more in taxes, not less. And the minor increase, maybe cash in your pocket this year that the Republicans are projecting, is made up for in increased healthcare premiums, because healthcare is really the issue that more people talk to me about the campaign trail on the campaign trail than anything else. People are concerned about affordability and access to health care, and we're seeing premiums go up as a direct result of this tax cut. So we need to think about overall spending, and we need to make sure that we are being responsible, and we're not seeing that from this Congress.
Hey, look, if in a week, when we saw the New York Times editorial, we heard the Woodward allegations, you know, we've got the Cohen plea and flip. If the Democrats regain control of the House, there's going to be a movement towards impeaching this president. Based upon the facts that you have right now, is that something that you could possibly support?
Well, so I'm a lawyer and I'm a process person, and the way I look at the impeachment question is it's very much like a grand jury. And I think that Bob Mueller is continuing his investigation, and until that's completed and until those facts, rather than op-eds in the New York Times or reports out in the media, I think we need to look at what the Mueller investigation shows us. And I think that the Congress needs to be prepared to act if what we see is that there is grounds for impeachment. But at this point, I don't think we have that information. And I think there are a lot of things that Congress needs to be thinking about, and a lot of things that I'm worried about accomplishing on day one, like addressing our healthcare crisis. And those are the things where we need to focus. And when we have the information from the Mueller investigation, then I think that we need to be prepared to act.
Really quickly, Congressman Culberson has been linked to at least, his name has been mentioned in connection with the insider trading case involving Congressman Collins. Do you think he has offered an adequate explanation?
I haven't heard him offer an explanation since this has come up this summer, since the indictment. There's also been a question now about campaign finance, campaign spending out of his campaign account, and we really haven't heard anything from him about those things. I think that people in our community and across the country are really concerned about a culture of corruption that we see in Washington. We feel that the people who are in Washington to represent us aren't necessarily representing us. They should be on the House floor talking about policy and talking about legislation, not trading stock tips. And I think that we have a right to know we have a right to an answer about what is happening up there and whether our interests are being represented. And I don't think we've heard anything from Congressman Culberson that satisfies the residents of this district. And I think we do have a right to hear from him on those issues.
Lizzie Fletcher, we're going to leave it right there. Thanks for taking the hot seat. We hope to have you back.
Thanks so much.
Next up, it's biggest political battle in the Lone Star State. And this weekend, the Bayou City was ground zero for Beto versus Cruz. Analysis from our team coming up, so stick around.